I am an anthropologist by trade, as we like to say. Currently working as Senior Policy Officer at Rogue River Guruma Aboriginal Corporation. I've been acting in the manager country and cultural role for the last few months while we were doing some recruitment. So a lot of my experiences today are based on the last 6 years working at the corporation, but also the last few months in particular. So, yes, there's been new and emerging challenges. So, just want to start with the things I'm going to cover today. So, I really want to talk about the connection between, so in the postnatal space, the connection between community aspirations and engagement with government policy. In particular, the challenges in my own work at a PBC. PBCs cannot rely on government policy and legislation to look after country, culture and heritage, which may be an experience many of you have found in WA. This is particularly the fact because of recent events such as the repeal of the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act, which was only in operation for 5 weeks before it was repealed, and the destruction of Dukeland Gorge, which neighbours the claim area where I work. And there's some real policy flaws you can see in that process. Not everything as well is solved with agreements. So I'm really interested in how we pursue community projects when this path keeps being interrupted, and what strategies are there for solutions, or they just, really practical and right in front of us. This is just talking about my experience. So this is just to show you the 2 native title determination areas. It's a very simple map. There's Part A and Part B. So Rogue River Guruma Aboriginal Corporation was formerly known as Guruma Modadunara Aboriginal Corporation. So the 2 claims were referred to as KM Part A and Part B. Part A was determined in 2016 and Part B in 2018. And so Rogue River Guruma people have for many years, and there's also a number of unresolved claim areas and an overlap area with Yabarara Madadona as well. So for the most part, Rogue River Guruma people don't live on country. They live in Karratha and Roeburn and elsewhere. There's only one town in the claim area. It's called Panawanika, and it's a closed mining town just for Rio Tinto employees. So before I talk about these challenges, I just want to set the scene of a situation where many of us may find ourselves at AGMs. We had our meeting in November 2023. So all the usual administrative reporting functions are reported on, financials, updates, component projects, negotiations, all the things you have to do according to ORIC. Because there was so much we had to cover at this meeting, we had a series of family meetings the days before to break down the information that was going to be delivered. And so as a PDC, we also struggled to move from, in an area like this in the Pilbara, we're trying to move from like the mining driven work, which takes up all of the core business of the PDC. And a lot of the time we find ourselves just caught up with the facilitation of approvals, consultation and projects, and we want to actually move on to what the community wants and those community-driven projects that are in our strategic plan. So we also see at the AGM, we have to go through all this administrative business, but we really want to talk about those big projects and really what the community wants to see and do. So saying that, and as I said at the start, there's little connection between those community-driven strategies and policy, which in a state like WA, largely exists to facilitate those economic projects. And really, we've done native title, and those native title agreements should really be transformative for generations to come. Like that is the point. So just quickly, this is our approach. with our vision and strategic plan, working together as a community to establish a solid foundation towards independence, community wellbeing, cultural identity, and healthy country for future generations of our four values. And so how do we do this? We try to take a organisation-wide approach through our leadership. And so rather than trying to deliver on everything, we like to focus our efforts on influence, so advocacy for change that benefits Robe River Gorama people, facilitating, so connecting Robe River Gorama people to existing services, and deliver. If there's a gap in meeting the unique needs of Robe River Gorama people, we try to deliver those services. So whilst we are quite a small PBC, we actually have, due to the mining interests across country, we have a big platform of exposure to do great things for the community. And so we have different teams in the PBC that serve different functions. But today I'm just going to talk about two community-driven projects from our strategic plan. So as I said, I think it's a fairly weak connection between community aspirations, government policy. Really, we need to row in the same direction, but we don't. And communities are largely driven to engage with government, not the other way around. But it's interesting because there is a requirement on proponents to engage with traditional owners through government policy and compliance measures. And ultimately, I think, there should be more government support around this because community aspirations are really about upholding and protecting native title rights and interests. Sorry, a bit repetitive here, but as I said, I think this topic's quite important because of its effects on the community and how it also affects the limited staff resources of the PBC. And we were talking about workforce integration this morning and how hard it is to recruit and have staff. But I also think in the situation we are in, because we have so much mining interests across our country, we can look to other parties to fill this gap. And this sort of thing can be used tactfully as well when you look at agreement making with private industry. So for the people involved with the recent Aboriginal Cultural Heritage Act and the consultations and workshops that happened in Western Australia, there was this huge focus on co-design, which is a word for me, it has really deep, to me it means having deep, meaningful conversations. And now it just has been completely overused in this space. And when I hear that word, I'm extremely cynical. It doesn't have the same meaning for me anymore. But this co-design really focused on industry, traditional owners, and representative Aboriginal organisations. Whilst it was not perfect, it was so much better than what we have or gone back to. But in the work that was left over, we sought to salvage some of the work from the consultation guidelines into our agreement frameworks. In particular, cultural heritage management plans to protect cultural heritage, which is really important part of our agreement frameworks. There was so much effort put into the preparation of the implementation of this to be a LARC, a local Aboriginal cultural heritage service. And because of all of that work and effort and drive, we've just sought to take what we can, which we see as the good parts, to implement. As I mentioned earlier, two important projects that we're undertaking driven by community aspirations. The first one's a land access and stewardship strategy. The second one is the protection of an area that we refer to as the Bungaroo Cultural Precinct. So the first one is a very important project because, as I said earlier, Robe River Gorona people don't actually reside on country, and it's very hard for them to access country as well. A lot of it's just cordoned off by like mining. Like you have to contact a proponent, go through a whole safety induction process, wear special suits and go out and visit. So we really want to look at some ways that people can actually be out there. So, as I said, as part of this strategy, members want to be able to go out and reside and also frequently visit country. So, in exploring these options, we're talking to stakeholders and doing some land tenure analysis about what is feasible. So, there's sections of the LAA, the Land Administration Act in WA, to make requests for exclusive access through diversification leases. Any mechanisms used under these require a detailed business case of what's being requested and why, and considerable negotiation with Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage, Department of Energy, Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety, I hope I've got them all right, and the local shire as well. And the advice from government has been that all of this will take considerable negotiation. It needs specialist expertise, and the onus is upon RCAC and the community to actually make this happen. So getting the right tenure is the first step, and this has to happen before anything can be assessed. And the different ideas and plans for how to access country cost different amounts. So we have to go through a process with the community of prioritising what's most important and how to spend this money. And all of this work has been done, on our own, and we're lucky that we have lots of mining. So we have money to be able to spend to be able to do this, but a lot of PVCs don't have that. And I think there should be a lot more help from government to do this stuff. But the specialist expertise we've sought has advised us on short, medium and long-term options for different projects, and we'll start to develop these further to feed into strategic planning. And so the Bungaree Cultural Precinct, which I don't have a map of, I apologise, it's centred around Bungaree Creek and its tributaries. It's full of natural resources sites with complexes that have lots of important features, historic and cultural associations. It's really important because it's an area that hasn't been too touched by mining or exploration. There has been some exploration there, but it's sort of nowhere near as impacted as other areas. And because we have no conservation areas or national parks, it's something we're really looking at protecting. So we have had to reevaluate our strategy here. With the collapse of the Cultural Heritage Act, we were going to utilise protected area clauses, but now we have to look at other ways to protect this area. And so in all of our agreements with stakeholders, we're trying to raise awareness. We want to explain and provide context to proponents and the government the important cultural and environmental significance of this area and have it protected for generations. And this means really no exploration and no mining, which we can't necessarily say under our native title rights, but is something that we're pushing really hard for. And so, again, we have to look at what opportunities are going to arise as it's become more difficult. We have to consider Commonwealth protection, cultural heritage management plans, what we do with the tenure underneath it, pastoral stations, conservation reserves, national parks. At the moment, we with the old Heritage Act, we have to look at ways to register sites together. And we can also practice that practical stewardship with the Judgewarra Ranger team that we've recently established. Oh, sorry. Where's Hugh? What happened? Oh, okay. Thank you. So, in conclusion, how do we pursue these projects when this path keeps being interrupted? So Robe River Guruma people and RCAC have a proud and important history and story to share. So when I'm talking about this path being interrupted, what I mean is these community projects largely remain the same. And they've been the same since for at least 10 years. Not the same, but they may come into sort of different forms. But largely these ideas and aspirations remain the same, and government legislation keeps changing. So the way we try to address this is focusing on community outcomes where we can influence and advocate and deliver for our members. We need to be able to communicate with the community we work for, the end game, and what we are trying to achieve. It's like a bigger purpose than all of us, not just the day-to-day of what's happening now. And being consultative in that process and adding input into projects. And so in this approach, we want to continuously improve and just circle back to what our strategic priorities are when aligning with the vision and values of the organisation. So it's really important to keep communication channels flowing and balancing this with passion, drive and momentum from things like Juukan Gorge. There's a bit of political momentum since they've had the no vote come through. That's dragged a little bit, but you sort of have to look at that landscape as well. And there's just huge challenges in this space coming down to staffing, funding and expertise. And these are all strategies that require approaches that harness resources across the community and the organisation. And so the examples I've talked about today are community aspirations that are practising and exercising those hard-won native title rights and interests. And traditional owners should be more supported by government policies across this process.